You know, social media is a very powerful tool. There's lots of positives, but a lot of negatives as well. Cyberbullying, probably the biggest, and we're talking a lot about that. And joining us is a young man here in Austin, Texas. His name is Justin Burke. Justin, you're a musician. You're involved in social media. In fact, you got up to a 1.5 million followers.
Yes.
And during that time, though, you started to encounter people, and they had some pretty interesting stories to tell you.
Absolutely. I mean, over my time as a musician, really, I got so many different messages from teens just talking about the self-worth issues or the cyberbullying that they'd be having on social media. And I was dealing with the same thing, and everybody that I knew that was on social media was dealing with it, but I felt like nobody was really talking about it, or nobody was talking about it where teens would listen to it. And so I decided at that point to take a year off from music and write the book, More Than Like, to hopefully share some stories and encouragement for teens that they shouldn't, they should find their worth in God rather than from social media hype.
What are you hearing as you're interacting then? And I know obviously you can't talk to everybody, and that's why you wrote the book. But what are you hearing from them? Is that helping as they're saying it's not so important that I get all these likes and people want to have that affirmation? Are they turning to God? Are they finding their value in Him?
Absolutely. There was one story even in Indonesia where the Amazon wasn't in Indonesia, and I had an audiobook and I got a message and I said, just share the audiobook, send it with whoever you can. And a lot of the friends were dealing with just getting their worth caught up in it. But through hearing the words and just through hearing that kind of encouragement in the Bible verses and different scriptures that are around that, they really started to find peace, at least the messages that they sent back to me, and that's what makes it all worth it.
So you're seeing young people then are coming free, and not only young people, but this book is now being shared as an example in a prison in Texas.
Oh.
Tell me about that.
Amazing. I got a message that a chaplain at a women's prison center here in Texas took a photocopy of one of the chapters in my book all about dealing with hate, and she sent it through the prison. And I'll be honest, that story made me tear up when I read about it, because when you write something, you can only wish that it would get into a place like that and be able to show encouragement somewhere like that. And I never would have imagined that it would have ended up in a women's prison center, but that's what God can do. Right?
Now, I know your parents are pastors here in Austin, Texas, and we love your mom and dad, and John and Kathy, great people.
Thank you.
Growing up, though, in the church, tell me about your experience with Jesus.
Well, yeah, so I grew up in the church, and a lot of people would say, oh, you're a pastor's kid. Wasn't that so hard? Wasn't that so difficult? It's not your own faith. And yes, I grew up and I heard it a lot, but that doesn't mean anything if I didn't commit to it myself. And so I decided to commit to it myself about in middle school, and it's been going ever since, and it's been wonderful. I've absolutely loved it.
Now, what would you say to young people and the parents of young people when it comes to relationship with Jesus? How should we, as parents, grandparents, handle that? Because a lot are turning away from the church, especially down here in the U.S.
Oh, yeah. I would say that it's number one. It's the most important thing. I write in the book, there was at one point where I had millions of people tuning onto my show every week, everything I had ever dreamed of, and it was the loneliest and unhappiest I've ever been in my entire life. And that's when I really was reminded, oh my goodness, none of this matters if I'm not pointing people to God. And that was really the point when I was like, okay, I've got to take a break. I've got to write the book, and I've got to give back to teens in this way, because we're all dealing with these things on social media, and it's such a new technology where I feel like we don't know how, as parents or grandparents, how do we help encourage our kids to get into the Word or get into Scriptures and lay off the phone, right? And so I just hope that my book can help encourage those teens to do that.
So in the book, you've got 30 daily inspirations.
Yes.
What is the goal of that, and what are some of the things that are in your heart that you want young people, and those are a little maybe older than young, to learn?
Yeah, well, I go over things like self-worth, the comparison trap, even purpose in life, giving your life to God. All those kinds of things I go over in the 30 daily readings. And I broke it up into 30 daily readings. It's about 5 minutes a day because, let's be honest, nobody wants to read nowadays. I like to read. I'm a dork, though. Many Many teens don't like reading. And
Well,
so,
it's not just teens. I think because we're getting our information on the phone. I mean, I get like news, and a lot of the things that I watch are on my phone, and I think that's hitting all generations. And it's important because we can use social media though for good. And I guess that's what you're really seeing and wanting to do.
absolutely. And it's not that social media is bad in itself. It's a tool, and we can absolutely use it for good. The reach that you are having through your online platforms is incredible.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of that's through online or through broadcasting. So it's not bad, but it's just, we all have to remember that we need to use this for good, and we need to use this to point people to God.
And I think the thing that I appreciate your enthusiasm, because we're in a time, I think, where there's a lot of darkness, but this is an amazing time to bring light. And I know that's your desire in this book.
Absolutely.
All right, Justin, I appreciate your enthusiasm. The name of the book is More Than Liked. You hit that little like thing on there. Staying True to You in a Social Media Obsessed Generation. And isn't that true? And if you'd like to get a hold of Justin's book, the coordinates are on the screen. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we'll be back with more 100 Huntley Street right after this.